excited. The kids, this is the first time that they've really seen mountains, and then the Rocky Mountains specifically. My wife and I, we grew up in Seattle, so we're used to mountains, and we love the mountains and love the water. Not a lot of water around here, but definitely got mountains.
Yeah,
so,
we definitely have mountains.
So it's just neat to watch them kind of experience that for the first time. But we came out a year ago to visit, to kind of see the church and kind of just see what the Lord might be doing. And I came back from that trip and described Longmont and Colorado as a perfect blend of Indiana and Washington State.
Hey, welcome to Whitefields Community Church Sermon Extra. Great to have you with us once again this week. And we are in our series called Behold Your King. And it's a study through the book of Matthew, and it has coincided with our Advent series. And so we're excited about looking and studying through these opening chapters of the book of Matthew, especially as we, dive into the Advent season and heading into Christmas as well. And this week we continued through looking at the first few verses there of the genealogy of Jesus, and Matthew 5 through 17. This one was called The Knots in Jesus' Family Tree. And if you missed that, whitefieldschurch.com, head over there and you can download it, or if you want to, you can download our app and you can find it on the App Store or in Google Play or wherever you download apps. I think if you look for WSCC or Whitefields Community Church, one of those you will find, and you'll be able to download the app. And with that, you can get notified when we go live with our services. You can get past services, be able to search, and also get to know what's going on at the church as well, and whatever information that you would like to know. But also any of your favorite streaming platforms, like if you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, and of course any kind of podcast platforms. And if you would interact with the content, that would be awesome, because it really helps boost this content up in the ratings from people looking on genealogies, and it'll pop up there in their Google search, and we'll be able to provide them with Christ-centered and gospel-centered answers to their questions. Now, you might be wondering, why is Pastor Nick not sitting next to me? We're going to be talking about sermon extras. Well, today we are going to introduce you to Pastor Stephen Pomeroy. He's coming on staff with us here at Whitefields Community Church. He's coming on staff as our community pastor, and we'll talk about that a little bit as well. But I wanted to spend some time today just to introduce you to Stephen and his wife, Vanessa. They arrived last night from Indiana, right?
Yep.
It was a long drive.
It was a terribly long drive.
Terribly long drive. They had to drive through Kansas, and so very flat. So Stephen and his wife arrived, and there are 5 kids and a very large dog. So just kind of introduce us to your family. Your wife is Vanessa, of course, and you have to name your 5 kids for us and give us maybe their ages and things like that.
Sure. So, 5 kids. Firstborn, his name is Stephen, so that's an easy one. He's 19, and then Joelle, she's a senior in high school. She's 18, and then I got to do math here. And then we have Cademan. So just like the band, if you're familiar with the band, Cademan's Call, and he's 16. And then we have Emery, she's 13, and David is 11.
Wow, that's great. You have to remember all their ages.
Yeah.
So it's so great. I got to meet 2 of your daughters this morning, and you were talking that you drove here in 4 vehicles.
Yeah, we had a 26-foot long U-Haul. It was a monster vehicle. And then my wife drove a 20-foot U-Haul towing our son's Jeep. And then we have 2 Suburbans, an old Suburban that's got 300,000 miles on it. Made it on its last leg. And then a newer Suburban for our family.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So, wow, that's exciting. So, as far as your family goes, is there, seems to be a lot of anticipation moving to a new state, Colorado. What are some of
Yeah.
the initial feelings and things happening there?
Yeah, so we're all excited. The kids. This is the first time that they've really seen mountains, and then the Rocky Mountains specifically. My wife and I, we grew up in Seattle, so we're
Okay.
used to mountains, and we love the mountains and love the water. Not a lot of water around here, but definitely got mountains.
Yeah, we
So.
definitely have mountains.
Um, so it's just neat to watch them kind of experience that for the first time. But we came out a year ago to visit to kind of see the church and kind of just see what the Lord might be doing. And I came back from that trip and described Longmont and Colorado as a perfect blend of Indiana and Washington State. If you just
Yeah.
smash them together, you take the kind of the farming rural culture of Indiana, and then you take the Northwest and the mountains
Yeah,
and just blend them
Cascades and
together. So
everything,
it's kind of neat because
Yeah.
like I understand a little bit of both of those worlds.
Yeah, no, that was exciting because, that was just kind of a story of God's provision and timing when you think about, you came out a year ago, we're looking to bring you on staff, and things just didn't kind of work out. You want to kind of talk us through some of that? Because that
Yeah.
must have been exciting.
That-
Because kind of, some of you're a business owner and all of that as well.
Yeah. So that just comes down to when it's God's time, then it's God's time, and our time is not His time, and so we just have to learn how to navigate when we get that sense of I feel like the Lord is calling me to this. It was pretty clear early on that Lord, if this is what you want, we're on board with this. This would be an amazing opportunity, an amazing move for us. But logistically, a lot of things had to happen, and the biggest one was selling the business that we started. We started back in 2017 in an industry that I had been involved with since coming off of the mission field back in 2012. But we started our own business in 2017, and then just kind of kept that going and grew it to a point where somebody could come in and purchase that and just hit the ground running with I think we had 4 or 5 employees, so nothing crazy, but to take care of them, make sure they're in good hands, and to sell to the right people. But God opened up that door, and when He did, everything just happened. I got a message on a Tuesday, August 28th, and September 1st, we closed the deal, signed documents and everything, and the business was sold. And then, I agreed to work with the new company for a period of time, which ended the beginning of December.
Yeah.
And then we, headed out. But everything along the way after that initial email came in, from August 28th to December 11th when we arrived, everything just happened as smooth as you could possibly get. Like, at times felt like we're walking through the Red Sea. It has parted. It's just all you're doing is walking through it. And there are moments, I mean, every moment really, where it still took faith, and it still was scary and a little bit nerve-wracking. Probably a lot like if Israel's walking through the Red Sea and they're looking up and going, okay, there's water on both sides. This is pretty intense. But when you come out the other side, you look back and just say, wow, that was as smooth a process as you could have had. And it's just a testament to God's hand in all of it.
Well, we're excited, to have you here. Yeah, it kind of mirrors a little bit of our story back in 2017, 2016, because Pastor Nick and I had been talking probably on and off for about 5 years. He'd come over and visit in Hungary, and we'd talk about maybe making a move to Longmont, and just the timing was not there. And then when that door opened, it was like boom, boom, boom. It started to move really quickly, and we were suddenly in Longmont.
Yeah.
And now it's been a great move. And I just want to circle back a little bit, because you said that you were on the mission field, and that's kind of one of the common ground that you and I share with Pastor Nick. And so let's talk a little bit about your background in missions and how that all started, and and how God brought you from there to here, and those kind of things.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long story, but I was on staff at Horizon Christian Fellowship in Indianapolis with Pastor Bill Goodrich up there, and both he and the assistant pastor at the time, they had been sending people out to plant churches in Ukraine, and they, just asked if we would be interested in going out and being part of a church plant. And it was funny because we've been kind of praying to that end, and there was a new church plant that we thought we'd like to go be involved with. And so my wife and I were just recently married, and we decided to go spend a year in Ukraine. And so we did.
As most people do when they get married,
Yeah, right.
Honey.
9 months later, you go to Ukraine. It's,
Yeah.
But that was the most amazing time for us, really, just to grow and to be able to serve in that capacity. We came back to the States for about 9 months while my wife gave birth to our first, and then we went back to, really, the plan was to plant a church in southern Ukraine, in the Crimea, in fact, which is, I guess, no longer part of Ukraine, although to me it still is. But and so, but long story short, we ended up in Kharkiv. We had one plan, but we arrived in Ukraine and God had a different plan, directed us back to Kharkiv, and we took over a church plant there. And
that's on the northeastern part
yep.
of,
And you're talking 45-minute drive to the border to Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and we spent 4 solid years there, just with the vision to train up leaders, Ukrainian leaders. And we had a great team, and they grew and took over the church, and it was awesome. It was amazing to watch that, and to watch it even for the next decade. It was great.
Yeah, no, and I've got to interact with a lot of those people, and of course Nate Medlong, who we will also be sitting in your seat when he moves next week, was in Kharkiv as well, and actually he worked for you in Kharkiv.
No, I wouldn't say he worked for me.
Served with you.
We were a team, and he was a vital part of that. Yeah.
So
after we left and the Ukrainians were leading, he was still a huge part of that.
A huge part of that. Yeah. So we're excited to have both you and him coming on staff, bringing that kind of missionary vision of raising up leaders, and coming and being a part of this church, and because that's certainly something that's in our DNA is missions, and of course Ukraine is a very big part of our heart as well. We're very big supporters and very much involved in what's happening over there, and so we were just talking before about God's sense of humor. Both you and I probably kind of share the same story that speaking publicly in front of people was not our thing, though. People might find that hard to believe nowadays, but you brought up an interesting thing that God, at some point the Lord kind of, in preparation for becoming a pastor, where your life is spent speaking in front of people, he kind of taught you a lesson through that.
Yeah. So I mean, my fear of public speaking was pretty bad. I mean, in high school, I would either skip school with the thought of detention as being better than public speaking. Or I remember one time I had done everything. I was ready. I'd convinced myself that I was going to get up in front of the class and share. And the teacher, says, "Okay, do you have your project done?" And I said, "I didn't do it." I just flat out lied and said I hadn't prepared anything, so I didn't have to speak, and took the F. And so, it was bad. But early on in my Christian walk, I had come to the Lord, and I just started reading the Bible. Thought I'd read Exodus, read about Moses, and so real quickly in that story, we find Moses in chapter 3 and 4 of Exodus, where he's confronted with his calling, and at first he says, "I don't think this is for me. Public speaking's not really my thing. I can't speak. I'm not gifted in that way." And so the Lord basically said to Moses, he said, who made man's mouth, and who makes him deaf or mute, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I'll help you speak, and I'll teach you what to say. And so Moses was left without excuse, and that also meant that I was left without excuse. So that if God called me to speak, that it wasn't about me. It was Him. It was His word, and He was going to help me speak and teach me what to say. And since then, it doesn't mean that it's not nerve-wracking at times or early on, but you just trust the Lord, and He's faithful.
Yeah, I know and of course that conversation was all sparked by the fact that we were making you spontaneously sit in front of a microphone right here without any preparation whatsoever and interview about your life and history and gave him absolutely no preparation. So
this was about 15 minutes ago.
15 minutes ago. Like, hey, Stephen, do you want to be introduced to the world through a podcast with absolutely zero preparation? And so that's what we're doing right now. But, we're talking about you're coming on board as the community pastor, also going to be heading up the Bible Learning Center, and a lot of other undefined things. So it's kind of, we're working our way into this. We were just talking about this in staff meeting about the importance of community and why, we're talking about the fact that the church has grown to a size where it could be that you don't recognize people. They come every single week, and it happens to me all the time. Like, is this your first time here? I'm like, no, I've been coming for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And you kind of feel embarrassed, and I'm like, I will ask Pastor Nick. I say, "Was so-and-so at church?" And he's like, "Yeah, they were sitting right there." I'm like, I'm looking across at from the stage, and I just miss people. And so we were just talking in staff meeting about the importance of, if we want to create community within the church, we have to have a concerted effort, and that's why you're here, to kind of focus in on that. And so I know that the role is not kind of defined, but, just kind of a brief question, like, for you, community, what does that mean to you in a church, and how important it is?
Yeah. So, the biggest thing is we can't do this alone. We can't be Lone Ranger Christians. I think I've heard that somewhere before. But just it's impossible to thrive as a Christian without brothers and sisters encouraging us and having community. And so, even in the book of Acts, you see that, the breaking of bread and the fellowship and the prayers, it was happening from house to house. It was community. It was small church. Like, the church was exploding at the time in the book of Acts, and this church is growing. But the bigger a church gets, the smaller it has to become. And people just need to be able to connect with each other. And it doesn't mean you have to know everybody in the church, but it just means you need to have people that you connect with and have community with, to do life together.
Yeah, no, that's so important. Yeah, I love that phrase. I think I've used that phrase so many times. The bigger we get, the smaller we need to get. The more whatever ministry you're involved in, whether it's a community group, whether you serve in the audio video team, or in the greeting, or whatever it might be, that you are communing with those that you're serving with, and that's so important in a church. And we saw that through the pandemic, how this church just kind of stepped up community groups, taking food and visiting those who are sick, and those kind of things. And that's just so important. I think a church is its community, and that's the best way we can be discipled. We can pray with one another. We can serve one another. We can carry one another's burdens. And we're just excited to have you come be a part of that. And we're excited to see how the Lord is going to form that in the future. And so if you're here on Sunday morning, you can come and find Stephen and his family. They're going to be your both services. They're going to be up on stage. And come and introduce yourself. He's going to be our community pastor. He wants to get to know you. You can come get to know him. And if you watch this later, whatever Sunday you might come visit us, come and introduce yourself. Pastor Stephen, his wife Vanessa, and his 5 kids. I remember Stephen. I remember Cademan. And I don't remember the other ones.
That's okay.
We'll get to know them. We'll get to know them because Nate Medlong is also arriving, and he has a wife and kids. And so a lot of names we're going to be learning, and we want to learn your name as well. And so it's been exciting to have you come and join us. We're excited to see how the Lord brings, makes you a part of our team. And we're so grateful. So again, Whitefields Community Church, if you missed our sermon, and we're going to be continuing this week through the book of Matthew, looking at Emmanuel, and as we go into get into chapter 2. And so God with you, God bless you, and we'll see you next week.